So the first thing that we're going to do is active cervical flexion. So I'm going to have the patient standing facing sideways, and I'm going to ask them to bend their head forward and touch their chin to their sternum, and she can do that. Is that painful?
Nope.
Okay, and it's not painful, so that's going to be a score of FN. And then next I'm going to do active cervical extension. So I'm going to have the patient bend their head back and look up at the ceiling, and you are looking to see if the face is parallel with the ceiling, and she is, and that's functional. So is there any pain? And there's no pain, so that receives a score of an FN. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is cervical rotation and lateral bend. So I'm going to have the patient facing forward, and I'm going to ask her to turn her head all the way to the right and touch her chin to her clavicle, and she can do that, so it's functional. And is that painful? And it is no pain, so it's going to get a score of an FN. And then I'm going to have her do the same thing, turn her head all the way to the left and touch her chin to the clavicle, and she can do that, so it's functional. Is there any pain? And so it receives a score of FN. So the next test that we're going to do is the upper extremity pattern 1. With this test, the patient is going to take their right hand and try to touch the inferior angle on the collateral scapula, and her fingertips clear it, so that is going to be a functional movement. Is there any pain with that?
No.
And she has no pain, so I'm going to ask her to do the same with her left hand. Come over to her right scapula, and she clears that as well. And so that's functional. Is there any pain?
Nope.
And there is no pain, so she scores of an FN on both. The next movement that we're going to do is the upper extremity pattern 2. So for this one, the patient is going to take their right hand and reach over behind the top of their back and try to touch the spine of the scapula on the opposite scap. And she can do that. Her fingertips clear it. So it's functional. Is there any pain?
No.
Okay, and I'm going to ask her to do the same thing with the other arm. And she clears that one as well, so it is functional. Is there any pain?
Nope.
And so she receives a score of FN on both. So the next movement that we're going to do is the multi-segmental flexion. So I'm going to have the patient standing to the side, and they're going to bend down and touch their toes with their fingers. So you're looking to make sure that their knees stay straight and that they can touch their toes and stand back up to a standing position. You want to also make sure that there is no posterior weight shift or excessive sacral angle or spinal curves. So do it one more time for me. So that is a functional movement. Is there any pain with that?
No.
Okay, so she has no pain, so that's going to receive a score of FN. And then the next movement that we're going to do is multi-segmental extension. So you're going to have the patient put their arms above their head and bend backwards at the hip. And you're looking for the ASIS to clear the toes, and you're looking for any excessive spinal curves, and that the spine of the scapula doesn't clear the heels. So do it one more time for me. So her spine and scapula does clear her heels, and she doesn't have any excessive curves. That's a functional movement. Is there any pain? So there's no pain, so she receives a score of an FN. So the next movement that we're going to do is multi-segmental rotation. So for this one, the patient is going to rotate as far as they can to the right, and you're looking for an appropriate amount of rotation at the hips and at the shoulders. You're looking for their feet to stay flat and that there's no excessive knee flexion. So this is a functional movement. Is there any pain with it?
No.
And there's no pain, so she receives a score of an FN. And then you're going to have them face the other way. And you're going to have them do the same thing, rotate as far as they can to the left. You're looking for the appropriate amount of rotation at the hips and the shoulders, feet to stay flat and no excessive knee flexion. So this is a functional movement as well. Is there any pain?
No.
And there's no pain, so she receives a score of an FN. So the next movement that we're going to do is the single leg stance. So for this one, the patient is going to be facing to the side, and you're going to have them bring their hip and their knee up into 90 degrees of flexion with their eyes open, and you're going to have them hold this position for 10 seconds. And you're looking for a height drop at the hip or the knee, and she does not, so you can return back to your normal stance. And so that's a functional movement. Was there any pain? Okay, so she had no pain, so that's going to be a score of FN. And then you're going to have them do the same thing with their eyes closed and hold it for 10 seconds. And so again, you're looking for a height drop at the hip or the knee. Okay, good. So that was a functional movement. Was there any pain? And she had no pain, so that's going to be a score of FN. So then you're going to have the patient do it on the other side with the other leg. So go ahead and bring your hip and your knee up to 90 degrees of flexion with the eyes open. And you're going to have them hold it for 10 seconds, again watching for the height drop at the hip or the knee. So that's a functional movement. Was there any pain with that?
No.
So that would be a score of an FN. And then you're going to have her do the same thing with her eyes closed. So go ahead, 90-90, and have her hold that for about 10 seconds, watching for the height drop. Good. You can return back to your normal stance. Was there any pain?
No.
So that would receive a score of an FN as well. So the next movement that we're going to do is the overhead squat. So for this one, the patient's going to hold a dowel in their hands and raise it up above their head. And you're going to have their feet about shoulder width apart. And you're going to have the patient go down into a deep squat. And you're looking for the shoulders to remain behind the ear, the knees not to cave in, the feet stay flat on the floor, and for the hips to break parallel. And you want to make sure that there's no excessive torso flexion when they go down into their deep squat. So then I'm going to have her do it from the side as well. And arms up above the head, down to her deep squat. So this is a functional movement. Was there any pain?
No.
So that would receive a score of FN.